currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
By the way, the NVIDIA earnings call is later today.
And by the way, since currency is relevant,
Sure.
Elon just wants to share with you some breaking news. The two of us would like to share some breaking news. Listen, I would say there.
Yeah, and it's all.
Yeah? Yes. What position? Allora, c'ho scusa.
Wow, look at me. I found an app where I can watch all movies and TV shows for free. Not only that, this app is free to download. Never pay to watch movies again. Download the app now.
It's not my home. My home is across the sea where my people are waiting for me.
They will be waiting a long time.
Listen,
Please have a seat. Now I'm sure we can do a bigger round of applause for what $1 to $8 trillion AVs, EVs, and all of the rest. Speaking of that, let's start with you, Elon, if you don't mind, Jensen. Feel free to chime in. You have a big fascination of something all of us have admired, first order thinking, which Jensen sometimes calls first order scaling, which is an opportunity for how you have dropped the cost per kilowatt hour through sub $100. And right now you're doing the same thing with robotics for actuators with servo rotors and motors. So I want to hear from you, how do you manage to always disrupt every single industry with that thinking?
Well, it's mostly not disruption, it's creation. So with, say, SpaceX, with reusable rockets, there really weren't any reusable rockets. But the essence of revolutionizing space travel is reusability. If you throw the rocket away every time, the cost of access to space is extremely high. With respect to electric cars, there weren't any electric cars when we started making them, really. You couldn't buy any, to the best of my knowledge. So with Tesla, we wanted to make electric cars compelling and affordable. That was the goal. With respect to humanoid robotics, there are no useful humanoid robots at this point. There are sort of gimmicks, but there are no to make the first actually useful humanoid robots. And this will be quite a revolution, and I think something that everyone will want. Because I was thinking, like, who wouldn't want their own personal C-3PO R2D? And then there would be many in industry providing products. But the biggest problem is everyone's going to want one, and or maybe more than one, and there'll be many in industry. R2D2 and C-3PO combined, and people often talk about sort of eliminating poverty and that kind of thing, but really how long have they been talking about that? There's lots of talk, there's lots of NGOs sort of trying to do these things, but really not succeeding. And the evidence speaks for itself. But AI and humanoid robots will actually eliminate poverty. And Tesla won't be the only one that makes them. I think Tesla will pioneer this, but there will be many other companies that make humanoid robots. But there's only basically one way to make everyone wealthy, and that is AI and robotics.
And we can't talk about robotics without AI factories. And yesterday was such a US ecosystem to be able to build inference nodes, training nodes, and to be the most AI-enabled nation. With that announcement, tell me what's next in AI factories, Jensen.
There's a beautiful story about how Saudi Arabia's building AI refineries, now building AI factories, or oil refineries to AI factories.
I love that.
I've said that AI is an infrastructure, and the reason from the perspective of the technology and how it's revolutionizing every industry. Digital intelligence, of course, has applications into every field. And so it's going to be used by every company, every industry, every country. In that way, it's foundational, and therefore it's part of infrastructure. What is new about AI from a computer science perspective is that the way computing was done in the past was largely retrieval-based computing. Mm-hmm. Somebody typed in a story, or somebody created a piece of art, or came up with 4 versions of a digital ad, or it's all pre-built by somebody, which is then using a system to retrieve the appropriate version for you. It's a retrieval-based computing model. Hadoop and many of the frameworks and operating systems of the past, all designed to retrieve the appropriate information for you. But today, software is going to be generated in real time. It's generative, based on the context, based on the circumstance, based on who you are, based on the problem you asked, based on your prompt. It will generate unique content for you every single time. For everybody, it's unique. When you use Grok, every time you use it is different. It's based on the right, based on the prompt that you give it, and based on the circumstance, and so therefore, it used to be retrieval based. Today, it's generative, and if it's generative, then and every time is different, then you need AI factories all over the world to generate the content in real time, which is the reason why you need AI factories. And this is a unique way of doing computation, but the benefit, of course, is that everything isn't preconceived and pre-documented, and it's contextually sensible and therefore intelligent.
So AI factories and robotics, and we heard it yesterday from His Royal Highness, his vision, how to augment our workforce with roughly tens of millions of robotics to be able to infuse the next wave of productivity and progress. But this scares a lot of folks when it comes to the future of jobs. So let's hear about your thoughts, Elon and Jensen, on that.
Sure. Well, say, like, in the long term, where will things end up? Long term, I don't know what long term is. Maybe it's 10, 20 years, or something like that. For me, that's long term. My prediction is that work will be optional. Optional. So
We'll take that.
yeah, I mean, it'll be like playing sports or a video game or something like that. You can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but the work is like optional. And between now and then, there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. I'd always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money is doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which this seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Now there will still be constraints on power, like electricity and mass. The fundamental physics elements will still be constraints. But I think at some point, currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
Cool.
By the way, the NVIDIA earnings call is later today.
And by the way, since currency is relevant,
Cheers.
Elon just wants to share with you some breaking news. The two of us would like to share some breaking news. Listen, I would say there's different horizons you can look at. Everybody's jobs will be different. I think that's for sure. How the students learn will be different. How people do their work will be different, obviously, because a lot of the things that we do very simply, and so we're going to be more productive in that sense. One of the things that I will say is that for most people or a company, if your life becomes more productive, and the things that you're doing with great difficulty become simpler, it is very likely, because you have so many ideas, you'll have more time to go pursue things. It is my guess that Elon will be busier as a result of AI. I'm going to be busier as a result of AI. And the reason for that is because we have so many ideas we want to pursue, so many things that we still have in our backlog, that there's every evidence that we will be more productive and yet still be busier because we have so many ideas. One thing that I will say, give you some evidence, is that, and I was just telling Elon about this earlier, radiology, for example, has largely been converted to AI-driven radiology, and there's some really great companies doing that. And the surprising thing is the prediction that all radiologists would be the first jobs to go was exactly the opposite. The trend shows that because the goal of a radiologist is not to study the images. The goal of a radiologist is to diagnose a disease. Now the studying of the images became so productive, they could study more images, study more modalities, spend more time with the patients. And as a result, they're actually accepting more patients. We're doing more radiology all around the world. We're doing a better job of diagnosing disease. And so that's kind of the near-term outcome of AI and productivity. And we'll see what happens long-term. You know, when currency doesn't matter anymore, just, let me know right before.
You'll see it coming. You'll see it coming. Like
we text often, so just
yeah, we do.
Yeah, just text it out. Yeah, let me know.
I kind of agree with both of you, because if you look at every technological trend, every general purpose technology has been net new positive. for the globe, for humanity, and so forth. And let me share with you two case studies.
And Your Excellency, I think it's precisely the reason. The reason for that is because all the great ideas from innovators like Elon, that you have so many good
Indeed.
ideas that
And
AI.
Jensen as well.
Yeah, well,
Indeed.
thank you.
So let me share with you two stories from two Saudi innovators in collaboration with a lot of the great work that NVIDIA does, that Grok does. So one of them is Professor Omar Yagi, who's the first American Saudi to win a Nobel Prize in creating new chemistry. And when it comes to metal organic frameworks, those are metal ions that are positively charged with organic linkers to be able to effectively create a sponge with 0.33 nanometers pores to capture water from air and also to capture carbon dioxide. The second story has also to do with AI, accelerated by NVIDIA, and with models. But we have some great announcements to talk about here today. Let's begin with you, Elon, the things that we're doing with XAI.
Yeah, we're excited to announce that we're doing a 500 megawatt. I mean, yeah, 500. Sorry,
500 megawatt.
500 megawatt. Yeah, we're doing. Sorry, this. Yeah, no, it's 500 gigawatt. We'll have to wait. That'll be $8 bazillion trillion.
Not bad.
So yeah, we're
Just got an incredible customer with Elon. Could you imagine a startup company approximately now going to build a data center for Elon? 500 megawatts is gigantic. This company starts right away. In addition to that, we're working. AWS, as you know, is also
Congratulations to the Humane team with AWS, starting with 100 megawatts with a gigawatt ambition and counting.
So AWS is also coming to Humane. We're working with Humane on Omniverse digital twins. As you know, that AI is not just just agentic AI and chatbots and cognitive AI is incredibly important to the world. But AI applies to everything: chemicals and proteins and genes and physics and fluid dynamics and particles, and of course robotics and activation. And we created this world called Omniverse, where robots in these environments, and we're working with Humane to apply Omniverse to all kinds of digital factories and robotics. That's another. We're also working in Saudi Arabia to build supercomputers, using our computers to be the controller and the error correction. One quantum error correction requires an enormous amount of computation. With Humane, they're off the charts, off the ground and off the charts at the same time.
This is how we walk the talk in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in partnership with the U.S. Yesterday, the president and His Royal Highness announced going big with. I have time for two last questions. So last night at the dinner, I got a number of questions because it seems that the schedule leaked, and everybody was giving me hints about the last two questions I'm going to do. So the first one was for you, Elon, and there's a big one for you, Jensen. So prepare for that one. AI in space, is that possible?
Ready to lead the future of AI and business with a doctorate? Join the Doctorate in Business Administration in AI and ML program.
AI in space, is that possible?
Yes. If civilization continues, which it probably will, then AI in space is inevitable. I always have to preface that. We shouldn't take civilization for granted. We need to make sure to take care to ensure that civilization has an upward arc. I mean, any student of history knows that civilization does not always have an upward arc, and in fact, civilizations have life cycles. So hopefully, we are in a strong upward arc. I think we are for now, but we don't want to take that for granted or be complacent. But in order to the way to think of AI in space is that in order to achieve any meaningful percentage of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, where you're using even a millionth of the sun's energy, you must have solar-powered AI satellites in deep space. So that once you realize, like, once you think in terms of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, which is what percentage of the sun's energy are you turning into useful work, then it becomes obvious that space is overwhelmingly what matters. Overwhelmingly, the sun only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the Earth only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of. You must go into space. So this is where it's kind of handy to have a space company, I guess. Sell the book.
Easier to cool chips in space too.
Yes.
Easier to cool chips in space. Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely no water in space, so you're gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
That doesn't involve water.
Just hang out.
Well, you're just gonna radiate.
That's right.
So my estimate is that actually that the cost of electricity, like the cost effectiveness of AI in space for a 5-year time frame, the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar-powered AI satellites. So I'd say not more than 5 years from now.
Wow. And just look at the supercomputers we're building together. Let's say each one of the racks is 2 tons. Out of that 2 tons, 1.95 of it is probably for cooling.
Right.
Maybe 300 racks. And just be a little tiny thing.
And just electricity generation is already becoming a challenge. So if you start doing any kind of scaling for both electricity generation and cooling, you realize, okay, space is incredibly compelling. So, like, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, 200 or 300. It's very difficult to do that on. Last time I checked, was around 460 gigawatts per year average usage. At 300, if you're doing 300 gigawatts a year, that would be like, no way you're building power. There just is no way to do a terawatt per year on Earth. And in space, you've got continuous solar. You've got you actually don't need batteries because it's always sunny in space.
Right. Exactly.
And the solar panels actually become cheaper because you don't need glass or framing, and the cooling is just radiative. So that's why I think
That's the dream.
yes.
That's the dream.
So Jensen, everybody last night was asking me, and I'm mindful it's earnings calling me to ask you, are we gonna?
All right. All right. Let me just tell you what we see in computer science and computing. There are 3 things that's happening. The first thing is that we all know that Moore's law has run its course, and the amount of demand for computing versus the amount of computation we can get out of general purpose computing is really challenging for some over 20. CPUs were 90% of the world's supercomputers, top 500 supercomputers, 6 years ago. This year, less than 15%. Went from 90% to 10%, and meanwhile, accelerated computing went from the other way, 10% to now 90%. Okay, so you're seeing that inflection point, the transition in high-performance computing from general-purpose computing to accelerated computing. Well, one of the most data-intensive, several $100 billion of computation is done on just raw data processing. That Rexus is the engine of the internet today. That's going generative AI. It used to be running on CPUs, now it runs on GPUs, which then says the third thing, if you just look at those 2 applications, many of the internet companies can build an enormous number of GPU supercomputers just doing that. Of course, then it creates this the third opportunity on top of it, which is agentic AI. This is Grok, and this is OpenAI, this is Anthropic, this is Gemini. Agentic AI sits on top of that. But don't forget to think about what is happening above, underneath, what is left over to fuel that revolutionary agentic AI is not only substantially less than you thought, and all of it justified.
Well, I was just informed by the team that my boss and your bosses is going to talk next, the Honorable President and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, and hence we ran out of time. But in essence, this is so much love for you, Elon and Jensen. But this, in essence, is a 92 alliance that shifted from energy to digital to the intelligence age, powered by pioneers such as Elon and Jensen, to serve humanity and create on a net new basis new economies, new jobs, and a better future for humanity, powered by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States. Thank you for a live.
Absolutely free. Download video transcripts, listen offline. Everything's in one place. Community.englishspeeches.ca. Let's speak English together.
Raise your hand if you have recently had to introduce yourself or make small talk. Yes, that is what today is all about. How to speak better in the moment. My hunch is, for many of you, introducing yourselves and making small talk at some points was challenging. It's awkward. It can be uncomfortable. So today I want to talk about how we can think faster and talk smarter in those moments where we're put on the spot to think and act quickly. We all know that speaking in planned situations, presentations, pitches, meetings with agendas can be hard, but it can be much harder to speak in the moment. And if you think about it, most of things like making a toast, answering questions, giving feedback, introducing yourself, answering questions. These are the things that can be very challenging for us. So today I'd like to walk you through a methodology that I developed in service of needs of our students here at Stanford and many other situations that they find themselves in when they leave here, interviewing for jobs, giving feedback to employees, etc. So today is going to be not just listening to me, but it's going to be participative. And we're going to start. It's not hard. Some of you look at each other going, oh no, what's he going to make me do? Pretty simple to read this sentence. And what's more important to me than the meaning of the sentence is I'd like for you to count the number of F's, the letter F. How many F's do you find? I'll give you 3 or 4 seconds to do it. Keep the answer quiet to yourself. How many F's? I wish my MBA students were as quiet and thoughtful as you are right now. All right. All right. Raise your hand if you found 3 F's. How many found 3? Excellent. Very good. Anybody find 4? There are 6 F's. What 2-letter word ending in F did many of us miss? So why do I do this activity? I have done this in every workshop, every keynote I ever deliver. Why? Because this is an exact analogy of what we're going to be doing here today. Many of us miss little things that make a big difference in our communication. Now, the other reason I do this is 14 years ago when I first saw this, I found 3. I felt really stupid, and I like to pass that. So we're going to identify little things that make a big difference to make us more effective in our spontaneous speaking. So I want to introduce you to a 6-step methodology that we can use to become better at speaking in the moment. And the 6 steps divide into 2 categories: mindset and messaging. The first step has to do with managing anxiety, taming the anxiety beast. Most people get nervous speaking in spontaneous situations. In fact, most people get nervous speaking. 85% of people feel nervous in high-stakes situations, and I think the other 15% are lying. A nervous speaker present. Now, I know a few of you probably like watching people suffer, but most of us don't. How does it feel? Just shut out. How do you feel when you see a nervous speaker present? Okay, so uncomfortable, empathetic, and I heard some people say, I actually feel anxious myself. I call that secondhand anxiety. So if for no other reason, we should distract it. So when it comes to managing anxiety, we have to take a two-pronged approach. We have to manage both symptoms and sources. Symptoms are the things that we physiologically experience, what goes on in our body. And sources are the things that initiate or exacerbate that anxiety. So I'd like to hear from some of you, what happens for you when you get nervous when you're put on the spot? Plumbing reversal, what's normally dry gets wet, right? What else happens? Yeah, you freeze. You can't remember what to say. What else happens? Please. Yeah, you feel your heart pounding, right? Some of us get shaky. These are normal and natural responses to anxiety. Your body sees speaking in the moment as being under threat, and it invokes the fight or flight response. And these are normal and natural responses, but there are things we can do to address these. Now, allow me to share a few with you. The first and best thing you can probably do is to take a deep belly breath. The kind of breath you would take if you've ever done yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, a deep belly breath. And what's interesting is it's the exhale that's more important than the inhale. So my rule of thumb, or shall I say my rule of lung, is you want your exhale to be twice as long as your inhale. And if you take 2 or 3 of these deep belly breaths, you'll actually reduce the rapid heart rate, the rapid breathing that causes you to speak fast, where you think you might be asked for feedback, or you know questions are coming, or before you unmute on that Zoom, take this deep belly breath and it will help. Now, if you get dry mouth and you know you're going into a situation where you might have to speak in the moment, drink some warm water, suck on a lozenge or chew some gum. Obviously, you don't want to do that while you're in the midst of speaking, but that will help. Now, because your heart rate is going up, because your body tenses when you're stressed, you have more blood. Find ways to manage your anxiety. Now, there's another side too. We have to think about sources. Sources is the fact that you might not achieve that goal. In other words, what's making you nervous is a potential negative future outcome. So how do we short circuit that? We become very present oriented. Because if you're in the, by definition, you're not worried about the future. So how do we get present oriented? One way is to do something physical. Walk around the building before you go in for that job interview. Another way is to listen to a song or a playlist, just like athletes do. You can do what I do. I get present oriented by talking to people. Before I got up here on stage, I was talking with many of you. That helps me get present oriented. I can't engage in a conversation and be thinking about what might go wrong in my presentation or Q&A session. Start at 100 and count backwards by 17s. That'll get you present oriented. I know I'm in front of a crowd that's trying. The first one's easy, 83. The next one's hard. My favorite way to get present oriented is to say tongue twisters. You can't say a tongue twister right and not be in the present. My favorite tongue twister. I said this tongue twister right before I walked out here. It warms me up and it gets me present oriented. Many of us assume that we can just go from silence to brilliance without warming up our voices. But you know, if you've ever played a sport or exercised or played a musical instrument, you should warm up first. So let's try it. My favorite tongue twister takes 5 seconds to say, has 3 phrases. And if you say one of the phrases wrong, you'll say a naughty word. So I'm listening to hear. Okay, let's try it. Repeat after me. I slit a sheet. a sheet I slit. And on that slitted sheet I sit. Excellent. Nobody said that naughty word, and I'm sure you all know what it is. So by managing our anxiety, both symptoms and sources, we prepare ourselves to be better when we speak in the moment. The second step in our process has to do with maximizing mediocrity. We get in our own way. I have the audacity in front of my Stanford MBA students on the first day of class to say maximum. They've never been told to be mediocre. But why do I recommend this? It boils down to this. We are the biggest impediment to our ability to speak spontaneously in the moment. We get in our own way. And we do it through all the judging and evaluating that we do of the material that we're thinking about saying. We get in our head. Here's why this is problematic. Think of your brain as a computer. This is not a perfect analogy, but for this point, it works. You know, on your laptops or your phones, when you have a lot of apps and windows open, how the performance of each one of those is a little less good because the others are open? That's because the bandwidth is less. The same is true with your brain. When I am evaluating and judging everything I'm saying as I'm saying it, I have less cognitive bandwidth to focus on what I'm actually saying. So when we are evaluating ourselves as we're speaking, we're doing ourselves a disservice.